Comrades and friends, welcome to the program Global Weekly News, serial number 180. First item, Pope Leo's first visit to Lebanon. The head of the Catholic Church and sovereign of Vatican City, Pope Leo XIV, just wrapped up a 3-day visit to Lebanon, which began on 30th November. The visit marks Pope's first foreign trip since he was elected as Pope in May and comes amidst an unprecedented unrest across West Asia caused by Israel's multi-front war that began in October 7, 2023 and has continued to escalate ever since. Prior to his arrival in Lebanon, the Pope told reporters that the Vatican has for many years endorsed the two-state solution, Israel and Palestine, should exist both, which Israel does not accept as the only solution for the Arab-Israeli conflict. Pope underlined dialogue as the path that leads to reconciliation, even amidst disagreement. Praising the resilience of the Lebanese people who do not give up while confronting hardship, Pope Leo stated, in addition to Lebanon's natural beauty and cultural riches, which have been praised by those of my predecessors who visited your country, you are a people who do not give up. The resilience is an essential characteristic for the work of peace. On 1st December, the head of the Catholic Church met with the Christian and inter-religious leaders at Beirut. The Pope reiterated the church's will to establish dialogue with the followers of other religions in order to achieve peace. During his departure flight, the Pope urged US President Donald Trump on December 2 not to wage a war on Venezuela to overthrow President Nicolas Maduro. Pope Leo also revealed that he has been involved in talks with Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to halt violence and seek solutions in the West Asia region. A renewed Israeli assault that targeted different areas of southern Lebanon coincided with the arrival of the Pope in the Arab country and continued throughout his visit. Second, comrades, we go to Africa now. Africa at the digital crossroads. Ghana has made significant advances in a digital agenda, and much has been at the expense of its own sovereignty, relying on Western companies and infrastructure. Africa is once again at the center of a global competition, this time not for rubber, gold or oil, but for data. Every mobile payment, social media post, satellite image and biometric enrollment enriches the digital empires of Silicon Valley, Shenzhen and other power centers. Africa supplies the input, but the wealth it creates flows elsewhere. Data is not just a new oil. It is memory, intelligence and power. Digital century may lead to recolonization of African countries. Ghana, a nation that once ignited Pan-African liberation under Kwame Nkrumah, is uniquely positioned to break this cycle. Next decade will determine when Africa remains a sovereign architect of artificial intelligence. Major powers are racing to shape artificial intelligence to fit their own interests. The European Union has finalized its Artificial Intelligence Act. The US has unveiled its Artificial Intelligence Action Plan to secure technological leadership and bolster domestic resilience. China, advancing its philosophy of a shared future, is building an artificial intelligence ecosystem rooted in sovereignty and strategic autonomy. Kwame Nkrumah warned that political freedom is meaningless without economic freedom. In the digital century, we must add independence is hollow without data and artificial intelligence sovereignty. Ghana can and must lead this transformation, digital transformation for Africa. Third item, comrades. Beginning of Cuban Revolution. On 2nd December in 1956, 82 revolutionaries led by Fidel Castro arrived in Cuba with the determination of leading an armed struggle against the Batista dictatorship. Their arrival to Cuba was no small achievement. The group departed from Tuxpan, Mexico on 25th November. The small yacht, that is boat, was overcrowded with limited supplies, and they faced major challenges to navigate across the Gulf of Mexico, all which avoiding detection. The revolutionaries landed at Las Coloradas beach in the Orient Province, Cuba on 2nd December. Less than half of the 82 revolutionaries survived the initial landing and subsequent military attacks and persecutions. Survivors, including Fidel Castro, Raul Castro, Che Guevara, and Camilo Cienfuegos, regrouped in the Sierra Maestra mountain. On 18th December, when a group of 8 men with 7 guns reunited, Fidel said, "Now we will win the war." The survivors began an armed struggle against the dictatorship and were quickly joined by peasants and working class. The landing of the Granma, in many ways, the boat in which they travel, the landing of the Granma, in many ways, was the official beginning of the struggle, which ultimately resulted in the defeat of the dictatorship and the victory of the Cuban Revolution. Long live Cuba. Now we go to Africa. Kenya. Fourth item. Kenya's High Court rules in favor of smallholder farmers. In a historic judgment, Kenya's High Court on 27th November 2025 declared the Seed and Plant Varieties Act unconstitutional, delivering a significant victory for smallholder farmers and advocates of food sovereignty across the country. The case, filed in 2022 by 15 smallholder farmers from various regions of Kenya, challenged the provisions in the law that criminalized the long-standing traditions of saving, sharing, and exchanging indigenous seeds, practiced at the heart of Kenyan agriculture for generations. The lawsuit was supported by civil society organizations. It was argued that the act imposed unfair restrictions on informal seed systems. Under the law, farmers risked fines of up to $7,734 or 2 years in prison for participating in informal seed exchanges. Smallholder farmers, who account for over 70% of agricultural production, often rely on farmer-saved seeds adapted to local climate and conditions. Fifth item, comrades, solidarity with Palestine. Europe marks International Day of Solidarity with Palestine. The Palestine Solidarity Movement in Europe again brought record numbers to the streets on the United Nations International Day of Solidarity with the Palestine. On November 29, reaffirming demands for an end to government complicity in the ongoing genocide in Gaza and the occupation of Palestine. Hundreds of thousands marched across the region, with demonstrations in London and Rome reaching an estimate 1 lakh participants. Palestine Solidarity Campaign wrote on social media, on this day, people around the world express their support for the inalienable rights that are currently denied to Palestinians: the right to live free from discrimination, the right to self-determination, and the right to return to their lands. Despite this, Britain continues to arm Israel and refuses to implement meaningful sanctions or end its diplomatic support. Britain still provides parts of Israel's F-35 jets, fighter jets, used to bomb Palestinians in Gaza, and maintains contacts with Israeli weapons manufacturers like Elbit Systems. Comrades and friends, sixth item, workers demand implementation of minimum wages in Pakistan. Hundreds of workers in Pakistan's Lahore marched to the city's Labour Department office last week to press for the immediate implementation of the minimum wages announced by the government earlier this year. The protesters shouted slogans against the government, claiming it has failed to address the basic concerns of the workers in Pakistan. Protesters, accompanied by a large number of women and children, also raised the issue of rising prices of basic commodities such as wheat flour. Protesters were led by Baba Latif Ansari, president of the left-wing Haqooq-e-Khalq Party, and other leaders. Baba Latif addressed the protesters, accusing the government of protecting the interests of economic elites at the cost of the lives of thousands of workers. The government claimed that the government had issued a notification earlier this year in June, after months of protest and strikes, to raise the minimum wages in the country to $142 per month. However, workers continue to receive salaries way below the minimum wage announced by the government, with no improvement in their working conditions or safety at the workplace. Meanwhile, rise in the price of food items, electricity, and other basic necessities makes it difficult for the workers to survive. A large number of protesters were workers who had been fired from work, who had been retrenched arbitrarily by factory owners. One of the demands of the protest was the reinstatement. Unions have been demanding a minimum wage of $249 per month. Unions have also raised the issue of social security, ensuring social security to all. In August, after the government failed to implement even a meager rise in the minimum wage, workers in several factories in Faisalabad, Gunjarwala, Lahore, and other parts of Punjab went on an indefinite strike. And then forced the managements to sign wage agreements. Seventh item, comrades. BRICS People's Summit. The BRICS People's Summit launched on 1st December in Rio de Janeiro and featured a public lecture that addressed aspects of economic cooperation and the construction of multipolarity within the bloc composed of 11 emerging market countries. It is important to consider the role of BRICS in building a new international order. BRICS group faces a critical view from the US government. Professor Ana Garcia from the Federal Rural University of Rio de Janeiro and researcher at the BRICS Policy Center, Ana Garcia, said that to confront the structural power of the United States, there are 4 strategic pillars. In the financial field, the power of the US dollar. So, in the financial field, the priority is to seek ways to de-dollarize. In the productive sphere, the expansion of South-South value chains is advocated to diversify partnership beyond China. In sovereignty, the creation of mutual and collective defense systems is proposed. And finally, in the realm of knowledge, the goal is the development of domestic technology, ensuring that all these fronts serve sovereignty and improve the lives of populations. We have to think about artificial intelligence from the perspective of the interests of the developing world, public health, the fight against poverty, and addressing climate change. 8th item, comrades. Gustavo Petro's outburst against the US threats. Colombian President Gustavo Petro spoke about the recent US threats against Venezuela and Colombia. Trump has called both Petro and Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro leaders of narco-terrorist organizations and has threatened military action against both the countries, Colombia and Venezuela. Gustavo Petro's reaction. Today we are facing truly frightening circumstances. That is the reality. Quotes from presidents talking about invasions of missiles, a complete abandonment of what could be dialogue and a return to barbarism. As a relationship between human beings, barbarism's logical outcome is death, and therefore it must be stopped. Stopped here, stopped there, and stopped in the world. We are currently under threat, and these threats must be lifted. People who insult us, people who humiliate us. No, Colombia has to be great, to stand on its own 2 feet, to have people who never bow their heads, who travel, who kneel before no one. The Colombian people will not kneel down before anyone. 9th item, comrades. Termination of UN Security Council resolution against Iran's nuclear program. Resolution 2231 was adopted by Security Council in 2015 as an endorsement to the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, or the Iran nuclear deal, signed between Iran and 5 permanent members of the Security Council plus Germany. The resolution lifted all existing international sanctions against Iran in return for extensive restrictions on its nuclear program. The expiry of the JCPOA, October 18, 2025, prompted the joint move by Iran, Russia and China. The JCPOA, which was seen as a comprehensive move to resolve the dispute over Iran's nuclear program, suffered a setback while the US unilaterally withdrew from it in 2018 and reimposed unilateral sanctions against Iran. Representatives of Iran, China and Russia wrote a letter to the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres and the head of the Security Council on 2nd December demanding the official termination of Security Council Resolution 2231. Despite the JCPOA's expiry in October, the UN Resolution 2231 was invoked by its 3 European signatories, the United Kingdom, France and Germany, in September, leading to the reimposition of international sanctions against Iran, despite objections from Russia and China. Speaking during the Assembly of State Parties to the International Criminal Court in The Hague on 2nd December, the head of the Iranian delegation, Abbas Bagherpour, called for all forms of unilateral sanctions a crime against humanity. Lastly, comrade, Croatia. Tens of thousands marched in 4 Croatian cities to oppose escalating far-right violence, intimidation and revisionism. Responding to a call from the initiative of United Against Fascism. This United Against Fascism forum warned that public funds are being cut from education and violence prevention budgets while military spending rises. This forum, United Against Fascism, declared in its call, but when we stand together, there is no room for fear. Society is being led to believe that armament is the solution, that enemies surround us, and that fear complex is the appropriate state of mind. Working conditions, housing and social rights are ignored, comrades. Thank you. Lal Salam. See you next week.